We have Jon Jasniak with me here tonight, and we are going to be talking about everything land flipping. So you can learn for what Jon and what his team is up to by going to jonjasniak.com/land. I'm going to make sure that is a clickable link in the show notes, but you can also find him on all the socials with his name, Jon Jasniak. So, Jon, I appreciate your time here tonight.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Jack. I'm excited to chat about land here.
So I got to ask, land flipping is kind of a niche thing. How did you find your way to it?
Yeah, man, it is kind of a niche thing, but it's growing rapidly. I found out about it on a podcast similar to this. So like someone like myself who is teaching and doing it came on the Side Hustle show with Nick Loper. It's a pretty old podcast, just like yourself, been running quite a while now. And in one of the episodes, a guy came on and started talking about the business, kind of pitched his course, his book. And I was like, the passive income and possibilities here that he's talking about seem really awesome. And I'm going to dive into this more. And so I ended up buying his course and bought another course as well. And shortly thereafter, I was making my first land purchase. That would have been late 2016 now. And it's snowballed from there, I guess. Seems like yesterday, honestly, though.
When you first start off in any kind of real estate investing endeavor, sometimes these episodes, whether it's on a podcast or clips you see on YouTube, it almost sounds a little too good to be true. Like, what are some of the things that you had to work through in order to make yourself comfortable with going through the process?
Well, there's a whole capital thing, right? Startup capital. How, where are you going to work? Like, where are you going to buy land? Where are you going to buy real estate? Like, how do you actually form a company and put systems in place? At that point, I had never formed an LLC. I'd never owned a business. And so, all those things are things you figure out going along, and the internet makes it easy nowadays, whether it's Upwork or Fiverr or whatever. I mean, you can find someone who has knowledge and help you out in anything, whether it's someone to set you up a quick EIN or LLC for a business or an attorney or whatever you need. So just rookie business owner things and problems. I think now, business is problems, right? It's problem solving. So it's like problems every single day. So you, as a business owner, you figure them out.
Yeah. It seems to be the case when it comes to any kind of real estate investing endeavor. I buy a lot of distressed houses, and you're really just solving problems for people.
Yeah. And the more problems you can solve and the bigger problems you can solve, typically the more money you make.
Right. So could you kind of break down what your concept is here regarding your land flipping? Sometimes it's a little different for everybody.
Yeah. Well, nowadays I'm pretty big into subdividing. So I do these big subdivide projects. I like to buy them with seller financing. We do wraparound notes, and I'll actually sell them with owner financing. So I'm kind of leveraging the sellers as a bank, breaking down the parcels, creating value by subdividing the lot, and then I'll turn around and sell it or anything like that. It's straight to Joe Schmo, person in the city wants to move outside the city. I think from a high level, land flipping as a whole, especially as a beginner, it's going in, identifying a piece of land that's undervalued, probably outside the city, sometimes even like in the desert, but certainly outside the city. Although you could do infill lots and stuff inside the city as well. But, we'll keep it easy outside the city limits, buy a piece of land at 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar, turn around and sell it as quickly as possible, whether it's for cash or on owner financing. So collecting monthly payments for, double or triple what you paid for it. That's kind of a high level.
Right. Are you finding that the strategy that you found your way to is one of the easiest to do this type of strategy? Or because I've run into a lot of people who will do this to a certain extent, they buy farmland and then they will lease it out to the local farmers.
Yeah. So what you're talking about with farmland and everything, there's, of course, with anything in real estate, there's niches of niches, right? So there's multiple different things you could do with land. Subdividing, I would say, is probably the more complex rendition of land investing because you're dealing with local counties, state code, getting contractors involved, such as surveyors, sometimes water drillers, water municipalities to run water lines, etc. But subdividing is the most scalable part of this business. If you want to build a multi 7-figure business or even 8-figure business, you're going to want to start subdividing. Now, for the average beginner, I would never recommend doing a subdivide as your first deal. Go out, start small. That's what I always tell people. Start small, whether it's $5, $10, $20,000, go out and buy a piece of land. Use other people's money if you can. There's plenty of people out there who will fund land. There's a lot of good Facebook groups for that. Go out, find yourself a small little, whether it's 5, 10, 20 acres or even 1 acre, whatever, 5, 10 G's, buy it, turn around, sell it for more. Do a few of those and, start working your way up to bigger deals. And then hopefully eventually you end up doing more complex stuff like subdividing, scaling the business.
Yeah. So that's good advice regarding any of this real estate investing game.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree.
So,
I'm sure you would agree. You don't want to go out and, buy a distressed house for $1 million on your first deal,
yeah. Yeah. Well, especially if you're going to flip them, start off with smaller projects and you work your way up too, because I've seen too many people who get into the flipping business early. The first project, it's insurmountable, and now it costs way more and takes way more time than they anticipated.
Yeah. And with experience, when you build the experience, things tend to come a whole lot easier. So you don't know what you don't know, and you got to start small.
Right. So what markets are you in, and how do you evaluate which markets you want to pursue?
I love Texas. That's where I live. That's where most of my projects are. Some folks that I teach and consult and stuff, we're doing it kind of all over the country, Virginia, Michigan, Florida, Colorado, etc. But me, mostly Texas. I do a lot in Central and West Texas. But, I love Texas because the economy is great. As far as like breaking it down further than that, if you're outside of a municipality, any decent sized metropolis, anywhere from, 50,000 people to multi-millions, anywhere 20, 30 minutes outside of the city, there's a huge market, because what I'm seeing right now is the demand for land is the highest it's ever been. We're getting a lot of folks who want to move outside the city. And what's really popular is land with little to no restrictions, so that they can go put a mobile home on it. They can do a nice barn dough or, a tiny house or some sort of alternative living. And if they really want, they can go build a nice, beautiful site-built home out there. So that's kind of the market now, especially with, it's crazy out here nowadays, man, whether it's pandemics or the economy or political unrest or whatever it is. It's like people want to have a little slice of their own land. It's kind of, to me, I think of it as like the new American dream, is kind of owning your own chunk of land.
That actually kind of surprises me, that some of the trends you're seeing. Typically we're seeing more and more people moving to the cities, but I can kind of see what you're saying with all of the unrest, whether it's the lockdowns and everything else that has gone on, that
Yep.
people want to move out of those centralized areas like that.
Yeah. And I think the population's obviously growing. They're not making any more land. You're going to have folks, of course, who want to move to the city, and then there's going to be plenty of folks who want to move outside the city. So that's what's beautiful about real estate, man, is whether you're doing houses like yourself, or you're doing Airbnbs or multifamily or land, it's like there's just so much opportunity everywhere. It's like, I don't know, it's crazy. I was looking at a graph the other day that land prices over the last 5 to 10 years have, like, bare minimum doubled in some cases, like Austin, Texas, and some of these other crazy markets, like 5, 10x what they were 10 years ago. So it's just insane amount of opportunity out there.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced in scaling your business at this point?
Now it seems like accounting, record keeping, and taxes. It's like when you start building a sizable business, start really making money, you need to have the systems in place to scale, right? And then you're starting to worry about, oh, I'm making money, what am I going to do with it to avoid paying tax? But when I was first starting off, and I think for any beginner, really, it's going to be capital. I've never really had a problem with deal flow. It's always been a capital problem. So, I mean, I tell people, like, finding the deal is actually kind of the easy part. There's a lot of deals out there, but having the money to do them is probably not as reasonable for a lot of people. So what do you need to do? You need to find people who have money and can help you complete projects. So that's something that I'm dealing with still, is, raising capital, working with investors. Kind of the next step for me, I think, is probably to start some sort of fund or kind of GP/LP setup where I can start doing more and more bigger deals. But, capital, is always the crunch, I feel like, as we can all relate to, I'm sure, in real estate.
That's one of those myths that seems to constantly get busted on this show, is the concept that find the deal and the money will come.
Yeah. Well, if you do have a deal, there's plenty of people out there who you can pitch it to. But what I always see is it's rare that I find someone who comes to me and is like, I have $100,000 to invest, or I have $1 million to invest in a piece of land. A lot of folks want to know how they can find money and raise money to do their projects, which, I think nowadays has probably become easier, especially since the government keeps printing it and handing it out like hotcakes. So it's like, unfortunately, the interest rates are rising, but there's still plenty of private money, I think, out there to be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always pushed the concept that you almost need to be building and networking as hard as you are finding that next property. And that needs to be efforts equal on both avenues.
Yeah, what do you think? I think networking is probably way more important than finding deals.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which is crazy because we're talking about real estate, and everyone would think, oh, we're talking about real estate, we're talking about deals, but really it's almost a networking game.
And it's not a show up once, pitch yourself, and not show up there again. It's a consistent, persistent, be in front of the same people over and over again.
Yes, sir. And if it was that easy, do it once and that's it, I think everyone would be doing it and making $1 billion. But that's not the case, as we know. There's much determination, persistence, blood, sweat, and tears involved if you want to really do big things.
It's one of those things when it comes to anybody that comes on the show. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about the successes, but it's kind of hard to even communicate sometimes the amount of effort and work that has led up to this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I was talking to some folks today and I was like, look, guys, you're literally trying to create, $500,000 to $1 million in value and in profit on this land deal. It's like, I understand maybe some of you get frustrated. You need to make a bunch of calls. You need to keep pushing, all that stuff. It's like, this is not a get rich quick scheme here, which I think some folks tend to think real estate, oh, I'm gonna go and flip this deal and make $1 million. You can do that for sure. But really, this is not get rich quick, and there's actual effort and work involved.
Right. So just to remind everybody, it is jonjasniak.com/land. I'm going to make sure that link is clickable in the show notes. But if you found any value in what Jon has mentioned so far, can you do us a quick favor and share it with one of your investor friends? So, Jon, can you talk a little bit about the note side of things that you were talking about just a second ago? How do you wrap a note and turn this into a bit of more of a passive game?
Sure. Let's, I guess, start at the highest level. Is like, okay, what is cash flow and a note on a piece of land? I originate all my own notes. Basically, I'd love passive income. Probably 80 to 90% of my sales are owner financed. So what I'm doing is buying a piece of land either free and clear with my money, or I'm buying it financing with either the seller holding the note. So I'll go in and offer a landowner 5, 10, 20% down, and then I'll pay them out over a period of time, usually 5 to 10 years. Alternatively, sometimes I actually bring in private guys. I've been doing a lot of this here recently. Sometimes these sellers like, no, I don't want to seller finance you. So I say, okay, this deal is so good, I want to go find some private money. So I'll find, an investor to pay the seller 500 grand, and then I'll carry the note with, or then the investor will carry the note for me. And so I'll pay the investor the 500 grand out over 5 to 10 years. And so now I have the piece of land controlled and I've actually bought it. It's in my name, recorded at the county clerk's office, usually with a deed of trust. And, we have a promissory note to secure the asset and spells out the terms of the deal, how much I'm paying either the seller or the investor monthly. So I'm paying on this piece of land, or I own it free and clear. Now I turn around and sell it. And so a lot of times I do these sales, like I said, 80 to 90% of them are on owner financing. So I go find a buyer, and I like to keep my down payments pretty small. Actually, it's usually under 5% down, sometimes only 1 or 2% down. So, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 down, and then 500 to 1,500 per month over 60 to 120 months, depends on the piece of land. So, I'm originating these notes for 50, 60,000. And if there's an underlying lien on the property, either the seller or a private guy who I'm paying on the property, we create what's called a wraparound note. So we're wrapping that second lien into the first one. And so I'm paying my seller, call it X amount per month, $5,000 per month, but all my buyers are probably paying me 15, 20 grand per month. And, I'm using those gross funds basically to pay the seller and obviously make the net return in between. That's kind of my go-to strategy nowadays. My minimum target I'm aiming for there is to like at least double the payment I'm paying my seller. So I'm paying the seller $5,000 a month for 100 acres, and I went in, created 10 acre lots and sold it off. I'm aiming to get at least double the amount of payments from all my buyers. And that's kind of bare minimum. And so I mean, shoot, who doesn't like passive income, right? I like kind of sitting on my butt. And the hard part is keeping track of it all. We use a, loan management software. I manage all my own notes. They're doing pretty good. They're performing pretty well right now. I only have 2 people who haven't paid, and there's like 120 notes I think we have in the system right now. So right now it's running pretty smooth, but there's times where folks don't pay, and now you're running a collections game.
Right. What kind of software or what are you using to manage that then?
So I like to use the mortgage office. It's called. Funny, I just was on a call with them today. I'm not affiliated or anything with them, but it's a great software. It's what a lot of the big boys use to track their notes. And there's plenty of other note management softwares out there, like your Geek Pays, and a couple other of these land guys have their own proprietary note softwares and management systems that they kind of pitch. And some of them will let you take monthly payments within the system. We use ACH processors to collect payments monthly, and it kind of hooks up to the system and keeps track of it all and ticks them off as paid and updates their ammo chart as they go along.
Okay. So earlier you mentioned you're starting to search for ways, or maybe you've done this now, to limit or minimize the taxes you pay. What strategies have you found to do that?
Well, with land, unfortunately, there's not great tax strategies. And this is what I kind of always tell people. You can't depreciate land, obviously. And so I think a lot of real estate investors and folks are attracted to real estate because of the tax advantages. But when they come into it, oftentimes they don't have that much capital that they're making to even really reap any tax advantages. So for the average person, that's why I'm like, look, land flipping is perfect for you, because in my experience, the pure returns, the yield, the IRR of land flipping, land investing, land subdividing, whatever you're doing, are some of the highest, if not the highest, in real estate. So go out, make a bunch of money, make sky high returns in land. And then when you're making a crap load of money, figure out, okay, now what can I do to minimize taxes? Because I'm not going to sit here and say land has great tax advantages. I haven't found great tax loopholes in the land game yet, and I've spent tens of thousands on attorneys, CPAs, etc. So what can you do? You can invest in storage, multifamily. I have my little town in West Texas I bought, Cornudas. We're going to put solar on there. There's crazy, the 30% solar tax credit. So solar is a great avenue. You can, the IRS is kind of phasing this out, but last year I bought the super expensive Jeep. And so, a 6,000 pound plus vehicle, and I ride around in that for my land business. So that's a great tax benefit right there. But, I just wired actually today 6 figures for a storage deal. So I'm investing in some storage, multifamily, oil and gas. A lot of those have great tax advantages to them where you can write off your capital invested. Unfortunately, land doesn't have that, but go make a bunch of money and then figure out how to save in taxes. If you're trying to save taxes on $10,000, I mean, use that 10K and turn it into 100 or a million, and then go invest in some storage facilities or whatever, because they're not going to pay you as much as land will.
Mm-hmm. So you let a little thing there drop. You bought a town. I was going to get to that. What is the story there?
Yeah, so that's a small little town in West Texas in Hudspeth County, where I actually did my first land deal out there. It's called Cornudas, Texas. It's 28 acres, cafe, motel, 3 mobile homes, 6-spot RV park. and we sell some gas out there as well. It's got a little gas pump. And so I don't know, I found it online one day. They had it listed on Facebook for a lot more than what I paid for it. And I was like, man, I really want to buy it, but it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like, how am I actually going to pull this off? And come, late 2022, several months went by. I was like, I think I really want to do this, because just the post itself, man, had like thousands of likes on Facebook. And I was surprised it hadn't sold by then. Everyone's like, oh my God, own a town, whatever. It was blowing up. So, and I did one reel on it on Instagram, and it got organically over 1.5 million views on that thing and went viral. So just the amount of attention it brings and everything is kind of off the charts. And it is is a great tax strategy because of all the stuff I'm doing to it, such as the solar coming and everything like that, for the tax benefits to it. But it's going to be a solid little business that'll make some money. It's not that scalable because of the location and everything, but it'll be a multi-million dollar business one day. It's not going to be like $100 million thing, but it'll generate some decent cash flow from the cafe and lodging and stuff like that.
That's interesting. But now you own a town, and now there's going to be employees to man all of these facilities there.
Yes.
Are you getting help there? Or talk about your business and how you're scaling to handle some of this.
Yeah, and this is kind of a good route to go down, I think, in general with the employees and everything. I think a lot of people right now are fascinated with AI and VAs and all that stuff. I actually have a pretty small team. It's me. I have one full-time employee, ops manager, Brian, and I basically have a full-time bookkeeper. I mean, he's 1099, but he's basically full-time. So basically 2 full-time employees, a fractional CFO, and an attorney. And so a mentor once told me, like, focus, you're trying to bench press like 500 pounds. Like, this is your business. Find yourself 1 or 2 really good spotters who can stand along either side and help you lift that bar up and get the weight up. And so that's kind of my focus, is building a team of, I like full-time, so that way I can control them and train them. And I'm not worried about some VA or something in the Philippines. I know a lot of people do that in real estate and are having success, but the amount of value this full-time people bring me are just off the charts. I think you really get what you pay for in employees. So if you're in a position where you're making money and can afford it all day, I would recommend hiring someone in the same town as you, so you can meet in person from time to time and brainstorm and actually get stuff done. Now, as far as the town goes, I have 2 part-time employees out there right now who help me because I'm not there all the time. So we're still in the process of kind of getting it up and running. And so it's, a lot of handyman work, a lot of manual labor. So there's 2 folks out there right now. It'll probably eventually be 4 or 5 people, basically full-time people out there working and managing the whole thing. And, so it will be its own small little team in and of itself. It's an unincorporated town, so it doesn't have like any municipality or local government or sheriffs or anything like that. But I could theoretically blow it up to make it a corporated town if I'd started buying land around it and doing little home sites and stuff. So there's a lot of potential there.
It's kind of interesting. So, it's kind of one of those things, thinking outside the box and making something work, being open to opportunity.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, it was more of a marketing and branding thing for me. That was like the main draw of it, is like, oh, I can own a town. And, kind of my goal is to be the most well-respected go-to person in the land space, like that Grant Cardone or, Gary Vee or Elon Musk of land. That's kind of my goal. So I was like, what better thing could I do than buy a town? So that's kind of what my mindset going into it. And I don't think a lot of people don't like social media, especially real estate folks. I see a lot of realtors and brokers and stuff are not very good with social media. I think it's fine not to like it, but to not have knowledge and know how to use it, you're really missing out on a lot of opportunity for your business. I think it's even just some basic knowledge of marketing and branding and kind of how to make a viral post and, how should I be looking at the camera and talking, and all that stuff can go a long way towards helping you not only sell real estate, but the amount of deals and networking that comes from my social media is kind of off the charts as well.
What other lessons have you learned from those individuals? You mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk and the like, and you're trying to be that person in the land. What are some of those other tactics or strategies you've been trying to emulate?
So my two favorite probably really are Grant Cardone and Ty Lopez. Obviously, they are marketing and branding gurus, and I've had the, I guess, honor and pleasure of meeting both of those guys and getting to know them at least a little bit. And so there is so much to be learned as far as like marketing and especially video marketing in real estate. Not enough people know how to market and how to get behind a camera, how to talk, how to create a landing page. What do you have above the fold? Do you want a video or a picture? What performs better? Short video versus long video? You know, how to run a Facebook ad, just simple Facebook ads manager skills. Basically, the best thing you can do for marketing and advertising, especially in real estate, is just experiment a bunch. I was looking at my ads manager the other day for Facebook. Over the last 5 years, it's gotten to about $200,000 I've spent just in Facebook ads, just in real estate alone, selling my land. And so we'll test, does a picture of the land perform better than a video of the land? Does a picture of the land with text over it, like only $500 a month, perform better than just a picture of the land? And so we're always experimenting and kind of finding what works best. And I really like what Grant says, and kind of his philosophy, especially when he was starting off, is it wasn't perfect. It's really hard to get your ads completely optimized, but it's really beneficial to spend on yourself and spend on marketing, because just the attention that you generate alone. I mean, that's probably how I got on your podcast, for instance, and how I get on some podcasts and do all this different stuff is just, spending on marketing and getting yourself out there. It has power to it. And I guess all money spent on ads can be viewed as good money spent on ads in a way.
Well, some of that stuff that you're talking about is actually another mindset thing, especially in the real estate market. I run into a lot of people who wouldn't spend that type of money and effort on Facebook ads because they see it as an expense instead of an investment. It's obvious that you see it as an investment.
Yeah, it's a good point. And funny story, real quick. The other day, actually, I was looking at buying a piece of land out in West Texas. It's 300 acres, and I like to do what I call demand tests. So I create up a little test for 40-acre pieces at this location to see if they will sell at a designated price. So that way I know I can go buy the 300 and make a bunch of money. So I start this Facebook test on 40 acres. I do a little geo-target to the area, and the broker who I was talking with a little bit on this 300 acres sends me a text. He's like, I saw your sponsored ad. Please take it down. If you want to make a deal, get with me. Let's make a deal. And I was like, okay, yeah, I took it down. I was just running a test, and I told him, it was like funny because if you actually have this under contract and are trying to sell it, you should be wanting me to run more ads because I'm actually sending leads your way, which I was getting people hit me up. And I was like, contact Brody on this listing. Here's the listing. And so I was actually sending this dude leads, and he told me to stop the ads. I was like, all right, I'll stop the ads. But why not? If I was him, I would have asked me to spend more ads, send him more leads. He wasn't doing it.
That's interesting. I reread the 4-Hour Workweek recently, and that was one of the things that's brought into detail there, testing the market like that.
That's kind of where I got it. I'm not sure if I had that brainstorm from the 4-Hour Workweek or if that was like I saw from a conference that one of these influencers were doing or something. But I was like, man, all these folks do it for e-com, right? Like they'll do a little test landing page on a test product. And I had this brainstorm a few years back. I was like, why don't I just do that for land? And so, I mean, that's what we do on every time we go into a new market or with a big subdivide. I actually have one that I'm probably about to cook up here tonight for a property out near Houston. I'm trying to look at this 450-acre piece and make 45 10-acre lots. So I'm going to fire up a little demand test for like 2,000 down and 1,000 per month for 120 months for 10 acres out there and see if it'll draw some attention.
That's interesting strategy. Something everybody should make note of. Just to remind everybody again, it is jonjasniak.com/land. That this has been a great conversation, Jon. And but before I let you go, I'd like to throw some rapid fire questions at you.
All right, let's do it.
What is a lie all real estate investors tell themselves and maybe to others?
I think passive income. They think that income can truly be passive. There's really no such thing, I think, as real passive income. It's going to always take some work to manage and build and all that stuff. So there's kind of an allure of passive income being completely passive.
Do you have a book recommendation, or what are you reading right now?
My favorite book, I think, for real estate is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Just the cognitive biases and kind of how it relates to economics and sales and marketing.
Whether it's in your business or personal, what is one tool you can't live without?
Ooh, I would say my phone, but that's kind of too basic. I'm gonna go with this loan calculator I have on my phone. Everyone should get familiar with how to mess with a loan calculator, and you need one that allows you to fix different inputs like interest rate, principal, monthly payments so that you can toggle and quickly get answers on the unsolved values.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Start reading books sooner. I didn't read my first kind of business or entrepreneur related book until I actually graduated college at like 22, which is kind of crazy.
So I hope it wasn't the first book you read, period. You're in,
uh,
you're in
no, I think I was always a pretty good reader and I would only read what they made us read in school. But then when I actually started finding stuff that interested me, it's like then the whole game changed.
So we're constantly fighting analysis paralysis and trying to get people off the bench and into the real estate investing game. Can you give everybody within 60 seconds a tip or trick to get into the game and make some immediate action, whether it's in their business or just getting started?
Man, that's a good question. You certainly have to start small. So I think you need to look at all of the different avenues of real estate, a bunch of free stuff. YouTube's a great source. Find which one most interests you, whether it's land, Airbnb, houses, single family, multifamily, whatever. And then what you should do is should go find a really cheap course on one of those things, because when you spend a little money, like $100 or something even smaller, when you spend a little money, now you're invested. And so spend on a small little course and do a deep dive on like one of those facets of real estate. And then once you feel that you're confident enough and competent enough to actually buy something, go out and buy a really small deal or start looking at really small deals just to get your feet wet. Because then once you own something, now you're really invested and you actually are a property owner, landowner, whatever. And if you can't afford to do it yourself, find someone to partner with and try to get like a small little amount of equity. Just do like an equity split with them. You contribute 1, 5, 10%, whatever, and they can contribute 90% plus or whatever and even help you on the deal.
Well, John, is there a thought or question you wish we would have covered here today?
No, man, I think this was a really good podcast. We went in and got I think provided some real value for the listeners. I want anyone who wants to hit me up, either DM or email. You can just find me any social media, Jon Jasniak. I answer all my DMs and all my emails and everything. So like if it's land related or anything else, like I want folks to just hit me up, and I just love interacting with people. And mostly I like looking at deals, like especially if you got like a land deal or something. Like I'm probably not going to buy it. I'm definitely not going to fund it, but I will give you full feedback analysis. I don't know. I'm kind of a nerd about looking at land.
Well, again, I'll make sure to have all of those links in the show notes. Really appreciate your time, John. This was great.
Yeah, Jack, thank you so much.